Hi there folks. In this video we're going to have a look at some Prvi Partizan manufactured 8mm Mauser ammunition. This particular load is a 139 grain soft point hunting bullet. 9 grams for you folks who like the metric system a little better. And Prvi Partizan ammo is made in Serbia. They're a company that's been around for quite some time, and they make a pretty good selection of military calibers and European calibers, and most of their offerings are pretty reasonably priced compared to a lot of the other competition. So here's what the cartridge itself looks like. It's a boxer primed, brass cased, reloadable cartridge. Uses a large rifle primer. You can see the head stamp there. It's got the old Cyrillic head stamp, which looks kind of like NNY to those of us who are used to the Roman alphabet, but that is in fact PPU in Cyrillic, and the 8mm Mauser stamp down below that. And you can see the jacketed soft point bullet that this is loaded with. I would presume that this is meant for hunting smaller deer. It is a slightly unusual bullet weight to see in the 7.92 or 8mm Mauser cartridge. Being 139 grains is kind of light. Most of the loads for the Mauser start at 150 grains and move up to the 200 grain range. So 139 grain bullet is a little bit of an unusual load. Anyway, here's what the projectile itself looks like. It's got the usual gilding metal jacket. It's flat based, and there's a reasonable amount of exposed lead. If you watch my videos regularly, you may have seen me shooting this ammunition out of a K98 Mauser rifle, and I was not terribly impressed with the performance of it. That's one reason why I'm doing this video. I kind of wanted to see what was going on with the ammunition that made it a little bit less accurate than I would have expected. Anyway, I think the main culprit for that is the bullet itself. Being fairly short like that and having not a lot of bearing surface would be a bit of a detriment to start with. You can see that it's a very short bullet. And the other thing that comes into play is the diameter of the bullet as well. If you measure several of these, you can see that they come out to 3, 2, 2, just a little hair over 3, 2, 2. And most jacketed bullets for this caliber will be 3, 2, 3. So these are, not only are they kind of a short stubby bullet, they are slightly undersized. Now, one possible explanation for the fairly low performance figures of this ammo, the velocity was not terribly high, and the bullet weight being low, may be that it is in fact labeled 8mm Mauser, and it's not labeled 8x57 IS or 8x57 JS or 7.92. 8mm Mauser is the sort of the North American designation for the famous and old European cartridge. And basically the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturing Institute specification for 8mm Mauser is for a pretty low performance cartridge at low velocity. Now there are people who speculate a couple of ways as to why that may be. They say, oh, there's the old 318 bore commission rifles out there, and they're trying to keep the pressure down in case anybody fires modern ammunition out of one of those old commission rifles. But I think the primary reason for this stuff being loaded so lightly for the 8mm Mauser specification, the North American specification, is because you can jam one of these things into a 30-06 chamber and probably fire it, because most of the 30-06 rifles out there, or at least many of the 30-06 rifles out there, have controlled feed features like the Springfield. So it is quite conceivable that over the time frame that the SAMI spec got developed for this cartridge, there were numerous instances of people trying to chamber 8mm Mauser military ammunition in a 30-06 chamber, and the Mauser, proper full power Mauser spec stuff, it is very potent stuff, and coupled with trying to stick a 323 bullet of probably 189 grains down a 308 barrel, you can just imagine the recipe for disaster. So I think that is the primary reason why this particular cartridge is underloaded so much, is because of those problems in the past when perhaps information wasn't as readily available as it is today. So anyway, we end up with this somewhat lower powered cartridge, which is pretty much the case with any North American spec ammunition. If you've fired Federal 170 grain or Winchester 170 grain 8mm Mauser, it's not very strong ammunition, and neither is this. Anyway, enough said about that. Let's have a look at what's inside these other than the bullet. We had a look at the bullet there. There's a surprisingly large charge of powder in these. Here's a case that's, see if we can get some light in on it here, so you can see how far up in the case the powder goes. So it's not a completely full case, but it's there's a fair bit of powder in these for all, considering their relatively mild performance. And I was a little surprised when I weighed it just how much powder there is. You can see it's an extruded, like a medium grained extruded powder. Looks a lot like IMR 4064, something like that. And I pulled apart 10 cartridges and weighed the charges, and have a look at here. The individual powder charges are listed out there. So we had an average of 47.5 grains, with an extreme spread of half a grain between the lightest charge and the heaviest charge. So that's pretty reasonable for a load of powder and for the accuracy of the weights of the charges. I'll get my flashlight back out here, have another look at these cartridge cases. See if we can show you the neck of the case. It's kind of hard to get light down there, but yeah, there you can kind of see the inside, and you can see that there's a single flash hole, being a Boxer Prime case like it is. And you'll also notice at the top edge of the neck, you see some black stuff in there where the bullet was, and that is asphalt sealant. So these cartridges are kind of loaded like a military round that way. They've got the asphalt sealant around them to make sure that no moisture gets in past the bullet into the powder. The primers are not sealed, but it really doesn't matter that much. Most of these things are an interference fit to some degree, so they are inherently kind of moisture proof all by themselves. And nice looking cartridge case, really. It's you can see the difference in the color there, where the neck and the shoulder are nicely annealed, and they haven't bothered to polish that all off and make it super shiny like a lot of the North American ammunition would be. I kind of like to see the annealing on the case. It's a sign of some care in manufacture. So really nothing terribly exciting about that cartridge case. That's one of the most influential cartridge cases in the world. It actually is responsible for probably the bulk of the hunting and military cartridges in the world have been based on this basic case head size, developed by the Germans back in the 1880s. So anyway, a famous cartridge that has been loaded by, I'm sure, the billions of rounds. So I guess we've had a look at the powder charge. We had a look at the bullet, but I didn't really mention the figures that I got when I weighed the bullets, because I did pull 10 of those out and weigh them. And here are the individual weights for the 10 bullets that I pulled. And we had an average of 139.1 grains and an extreme spread of 1.5 grains between the lightest and the heaviest bullet. So that's actually a fairly big spread by today's standards. Most of today's ammunition will exhibit really small spreads between heaviest and lightest bullets if you check 10 of them out. In fact, most of the current production of bullets from places like Sierra and Nosler and Hornady, your scale will barely change when you change bullets. They're almost exactly the same weight. So a grain and a half is a bit of a big spread on these, and that might be another factor that explained why the group sizes were perhaps a little bigger than I would like to have seen. Well, I guess that'll do it for this review. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll talk to you later.